Hi, I'm Sathi Roy. Welcome to my series, Conversations with Phoenix. Direct, powerful, and unfiltered discussions on humanity, the universe, relationships, and the cycles of transformation.
First and foremost, thank you.
Thank you.
I feel very, very blessed to be here. It's such a beautiful place. And how we met, just an absolute divine timing. So first and foremost, thank you for inviting me here into this world.
Cool.
Well, I think the reason that I wanted to speak with you is because when we met, which was in Miami, just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I've been going through my own spiritual evolution and also just reconnection with my own culture. So I was born and raised in New York City, and like many first generation, South Asian Americans, you have to kind of detach from your culture in order to kind of assimilate and really understand the way of the land and the way to be, in America. And then later in life, when you're ready, you decide to reconnect. So that was me. That was my experience. I had to really disconnect from my culture, and primarily because from a very early age, I knew that I was different. It was pretty obvious, right? My first crush on a female was when I was 4, kindergarten. It's a blonde girl named Casey. So I knew that I was different. At the same time, I always also felt very connected to something. I always felt it. I didn't have any words for it back then, but I felt a sense of security within myself to this unprecedented degree, because I know I was not somebody who could really be blend in, we'll say.
Mm.
So I was an observer. I would observe everything, but I always had my own internal kind of compass. So grew up, and later towards the most recent part of my life, the past 2 years, I've really been reconnecting with my roots, because even though I had to stray away, I always still felt connected, and I didn't know why. So I always used to still say, no, I'm Hindu, even though I never went to the temple. I never did any sort of the ritual worship. And I didn't do anything that I saw growing up that other Hindus would do, but I still, within my own self, connected with it. So the past 2 years, I've been to India like 7 times, and, have really just been diving into it. And it's just been beautiful. So it brings me here, when I met you last week, I wanted to talk. I wanted to see if you were interested in just talking about life, attachment, detachment, love, karma, all these things that I've thought about. And I have my understanding of it.
Mm.
And anytime I've read anything involved in Hinduism, it's always connected with it.
Mm.
So philosophically, I feel very Hindu. But religiously, I can't say I really resonate.
Huh. Yeah, I think it's very important to understand, I would say, the difference between Hinduism and actually the real name of the tradition, which is called Sanatana Dharma. So if you were to literally translate Sanatana Dharma, it just means the path towards the eternal truth.
Hmm.
And I think the reason why so many people, when they hear the philosophy, it automatically clicks for them, is because all of that truth is contained within themselves.
Right.
All of these things we know. And we give the analogy of a candle. If the candle wants to know itself, it gains awareness to the flame, right? So it doesn't need an external source to understand what it is. It's done through its own flame. And so in the same way, all of us inwardly know what is really the truths of life, right? There's all of this energy outside that make us identify with this world, and we go through suffering and attachments and all those things. But deep, deep, deep inside, we all know, yes, we are not this body. We are not this mind. We are not this thoughts. We're something eternal. It doesn't matter who the person is. Somewhere deep inside it's there. So when we hear these philosophical understandings, immediately we resonate. And that's different from Hinduism. So when we had spoken about that term Hinduism, we have to see that term came about a couple hundred years ago when people would come to this land of India called Bharat at the time. And they would cross the Indus Valley and they would say Hindus, the people of India. And that term Hinduism started to come. And Hinduism is very much associated with how we would view, let's say, Abrahamic tradition, where it's about, okay, I got to worship one type of God. And if I don't, then that God is going to, do something bad for me. And I'm going to worship this God because I want something in return. And that's sort of how people understand Hinduism this day and age.
Right.
That's why so many younger people are not resonating with the tradition, because they're grown up with their parents telling them they should fear God. Growing up, the parents telling them that they should do business deals with God. Because you see, what happened was when a lot of the Indians moved to the West, you have to realize they came with nothing.
Yeah.
And so what was their main focus? Trying to make money.
Security.
They didn't have time to understand philosophy.
Totally.
But in India, when you were in the Vedic tradition, you spend a lot of the time studying from the gurus, from the teachers. Right? You go and you learn. And so that whole element was completely skipped for the people that came here. And even in India now,
right,
nobody has time for things like that. Right? There's so much focused on social media or this or that. Nobody has time to learn. And so because of that, now the philosophy is lost.
Right.
And all that's left is theology. Now we are worshiping these different forms, these different deities, but we have no idea why we're doing it from a philosophical standpoint. And so for me, that's why I don't even like using the word Hinduism. I like to call it the Sanatana Dharma or the Vedic tradition, because it's more than just worshiping the external deity. We must also understand the philosophy.
I love that you explained that, especially because that is exactly what I didn't resonate with growing up. Now, my parents never pushed anything on me, which is really nice. However, as you said, right, my parents came with nothing. And what do you do when you go to a new place? You try to find something that's familiar. You find community. And what does the community do? They want to feel at home, a piece of home. So they bring forward certain traditions. And so there were these events, right? These family events or these festivities, these functions I would go to that were more like social events. I mean, it was there because they wanted community.
Yeah.
They wanted social events. And it was always centered around some sort of religious holiday. So the social events mixed in with the religious holidays ended up being these really interesting just centers where I observed a lot, right? I observed a lot of gossiping. I observed a lot of judgment. And I was just so confused because even through that, I'm like, I connect with this in some way. But I was the kid in the corner on my phone, right? Exactly. I was the kid in the corner on my phone, totally like just isolated from it all. But and feeling connected internally, but just not showing it because I didn't want to participate in some of the things that I saw. And I just thought it was strange that like I was being told, oh, I have to dress this way. This is what girls do. This is what guys do. And that obviously didn't resonate with me early on.